I see. I don't know how seriously you're considering, running for public office, but
I think it's something I have to do. It's not something I want to do. I think it'll be a fucking total disaster. I think they'll probably fucking, and end up, smoking me or, putting me in jail, doing something fucked up. If you were on their side and you knew somebody as influential as Charlie Kirk was going to turn on you, which would be catastrophic for their movement, would you just let them do it? I'm saying they're killing people for fucking fun. They're killing people for no reason. You're going to tell me they're not going to kill somebody when they have a reason? Like, fuck off.
you haven't done a lot of media appearances recently, if I'm not mistaken. You've been pretty off the grid.
Yeah. I've been kind of waiting. Like, Candace wanted to do it, but she wanted me to go out there, and I didn't really want to travel to do it. Nick also wanted to do one, but we agreed on so much stuff. I wasn't really sure what, you know what I mean? Like, I actually prefer the debate format. So I wouldn't mind going back on Piers, but he's a little squirrely. But yeah, I was supposed to debate Tommy Robinson, but he backed out of that. But now that he's back out of jail, maybe we can do that one. I think that would be good. I think that one is important. Are we rolling, by the way?
Yeah, we're live. We're on X, Rumble, Party, Kick. We're good to go.
Cool. Yeah. So the Tommy one, I thought that would be good because I feel like he's he's super anti-Muslim, and I think Christians and Muslims need to kind of like band together. So I think we would have a decent amount of points of contention. And I think he's going to have a harder time debating me because I think he's used to debating Muslims. And when he debates a Muslim, they've had a lot of, issues over there. But that to me is more of an immigration poverty issue. And they paint it as a Muslim issue. But look, at the end of the day, when you have 2 billion fucking people, there's going to be shitheads, plenty of them. And so you can't, you can't look at what's going on because the immigration, what they're doing is they're basically solving for the worst possible fucking candidates. Because the people that are trying to do it legitimately in the U.S., they apply. It's like a 10-year process, this whole fucking thing. But if you want to be some border jumper, coming over here with a pocket full of fentanyl and a fucking pistol, you're fine. You know what I mean? Come on in. You got no money, come in. But the people that are qualified, we're keeping them out. So we're actually keeping out all the decent people and letting in the worst of the worst. So when you let in people that have no money, that have no allegiance to a country, obviously you're going to have a lot more fucking issues. And, some of these people that, are coming in, they happen to be Muslim because they're, a quarter of the fucking globe. So statistically, you're going to have a decent amount of Muslims. And so they want to paint it, these Jews want to paint it as a Muslim problem. And it's really an immigration problem. And if you look at all the NGOs that are pushing these open borders, many of them are, Jewish run or Jewish funded. In fact, that was something Charlie Kirk was talking about. And may have led to his demise. But I think that Christians and Muslims need to unite. I think this whole right against the left, blacks against the whites. I mean, it's just all division. And that wasn't here in, 2019. That's a very new, obviously there's always been some kind of racism, some kind of issue, but it's been exacerbated to the point where people are at each other's throats like I've never seen before in my lifetime anyway. So, I like to get at the root of the problem, and there's so many people that are like, oh, it's the blacks. It's, if we just got rid of these leftists, if we just got, rid of this and that, and to me, that's kind of like a guy that, he's got snakes in his house and he's so fucking worried about the snakes in his house, like these fucking snakes, and he's killing all these snakes, and he's got a Jew upstairs letting fucking snakes in his house. And I'm zooming out like, hey, they got a Jew upstairs letting snakes in your fucking house. Maybe you stop that and you stop the fucking problem. But instead, he's so focused on his immediate issue that he loses sight of who's causing these problems.
Yeah, Tommy Robinson, I think we were supposed to set up that debate. It was Aiden and I setting it up with you last year, and something happened. I think he backed out, or maybe he was afraid.
Yeah. He went to jail. I think he wanted to do it, but there was some issues. Then he wanted me to go to him, and it was a whole thing. And he ended up going, getting locked up, and now it's kind of his excuse. But now that he's back out, maybe we could set that up again.
Well, that's why guys like Charlie Kirk avoided debates with, anti-Zionists for so long and, refused, because if Tommy Robinson would speak to somebody like you, his whole MO would get exposed. He's not really anti-immigration. He said publicly he likes Indian immigrants. He is clearly a big supporter of Israel. And the Judeo-Christian values that people like Charlie Kirk are pushing were to pit everybody against Muslims because they need an us versus them mentality. But when you look into it,
Oh,
there's no basis for Judeo-Christian values.
yeah, no, there are two religions that have, almost nothing in common aside from the Old Testament. And, and a lot of, the Muslim religion has those, some of the New Testament, Old Testament stories in there as well. So if you look at the religions, the Muslim religion and the Christian religion are actually very similar with regards to how they, look at Jesus and the Virgin Mary, and, which to me are some of the pillars, obviously, of Christianity, because Christianity is based on Christ and it's based on him being, God, or, you know, um, or God's son, whatever. And the Muslims believe he's a great prophet. The Jews believe that he's in hell burning in shit. So to me, I look at those three religions and it's like two can, coexist, and one has, is at odds with the other two. But we've just been indoctrinated that like Muslims are terrorists, jihadis, Sharia law, like, they throw out these like, little fucking catchphrases, and it gets people all riled up, and then they use the media to, point at certain instances. And you look at a lot of what the Jews did. I mean, the goal of the Levant affair, where they were planting explosives in U.S. and British cinemas, libraries, whatever, like the stated goal by them was to blame that on the Muslim Brotherhood. So they've been caught so many times doing these false flag attacks, and many of the times the false flag attacks is to vilify Muslims and unite us to go fight their wars for them. So it's like, how many times do you need to see the same example to start recognizing the pattern? It's like, these people have done this so many fucking times. Is it so hard to believe that they would do it again? And I think that's
they
what
just
a lot of
did.
people are.
They just
Yeah,
did. Netanyahu went on Fox News the day after Charlie Kirk's assassination and started blaming Marxists working with radical Islamists to take out a good Christian, Judeo-Christian man. So the playbook, we've seen it time and time again. And, things are very hectic right now. I think you spelled it out perfectly. I think the chaos and division was intentional. I'm wondering what you make of this whole recent situation in America.
I just think it's getting worse. And I think everybody's, looking for somebody to blame. And I think the people that are actually to blame for most of these problems are doing a pretty good job of running interference. And right now they're fucking taking Gaza. It's just like distraction. Let's go bomb Iran. We don't want to release the Epstein files. Let's go bomb another country. People are focused on that. Like, oh, he's not releasing Epstein's files. Let's go bomb some random boat in international waters. It's like, it's always something else, and it's deflection, distraction. And the net result is that everybody's, kind of pitted against each other. And that's the textbook divide and conquer, right? Like, you get everybody mad at each other. They're very easy to control. You get a bunch of people that, can agree on a lot of things, because you look back 10 years ago and we could agree on a lot of stuff. We could agree that we didn't want, men beating up women. We could agree that pedophiles were bad. And, like, there was a lot of things that the whole country agreed on. And somehow that got flipped on its head. And now everybody's at each other's throats. And I don't think it's an accident.
What about all the censorship that people are calling for? This morning I woke up and Destiny tweeted saying that Elon Musk got him banned on Twitch, which is a lie. He was banned on Twitch several years ago. But people are calling for each other's censorship, tagging the FBI, getting people fired from their jobs for celebrating. Is that going to help out this discourse and this problem?
No, I mean, look, Charlie and I disagreed about a lot of things, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to dance on his grave and, celebrate his death. That said, people don't have to be upset at his death, and they can be happy. They can react however the fuck they want. It's a free country, freedom of speech. And this idea that we need to censor this or censor that, or, that this is going to protect us, it's just all fucking bullshit. Like, that doesn't protect you. And look, I know that Nick had somebody show up to his house, and maybe he's a little bit more sensitive about this than others, but I mean, Charlie Kirk's one guy, like 150,000 people die every day. Like, it's sad that he died. I mean, it's terrible. And the way he died was horrendous, but because one person dies doesn't mean that we need to enact a whole, crazy amount of laws to take away more freedoms. I mean, that's what they did on 9/11. They, put in the Patriot Act, and they erode at your freedoms, and they don't come back. They just keep going away. And, one of the most important freedoms that we have is freedom of speech. So, I don't need protection from the left. I'm not worried about some fucking blue-haired retard that probably can't operate a fucking safety on a rifle, So And I looked at that rifle, and by the way, the way that the optic was mounted on that thing, that would have given you a fucking ring around your eye. I mean, I don't know. The story doesn't really check out to me. The guy disassembles a rifle, jumps off a roof, only to take it out to the woods to reassemble it again. I mean, come on, that just makes no fucking sense. If you're going to leave a rifle for people to find, like, why wouldn't you just leave it on the roof? Um, but look, we'll get the the story as it comes out, or as they want to present it to us, and we can decide whether or not we want to believe it or not. But right now, the current story that they've given me doesn't make a lot of sense. But I don't have all.
When it comes to people that know weapons and guns, when I was able to show me around your house, you have more guns. Like you could probably arm Haiti. Like you could arm a small military with these. I'm not to give away too much, but you definitely know a thing or two about weapons. Would a transgender, would some deranged liberal be able to pull off an assassination like this?
Well, as far as the shot goes, a shot under 200 yards. I mean, anybody that's had any kind of training with a rifle could definitely make that shot, especially with an optic. As far as getting away with it, now that's a whole different story, right? Because to get a gun that's not traceable to you, you have to commit a whole nother crime just to get that done, right? You have to go steal a gun, then there's a crime scene, then that gets reported, right? So you have to go commit a crime successfully, get away with that, and now you have a gun, but that gun is still linked to that crime, right? Whatever state that gun was stolen in, whatever car you used, right? There's a whole thing, right? So the more crimes that you have to commit to get something done, the more, ability people have to figure out who the fuck you are. And so, if you're going to go through all, I mean, and then if he's using a gun that's just registered to him, I have a hard time believing that he's just going to leave in the woods. But I don't know. I don't want to speculate on things that I don't know about, but it seems very unlikely that a guy is going to leave the murder weapon. I mean, you leave a note maybe, but look, these are deranged people. I mean, the whole transgender thing. I mean, most transgenders were assumed to be mentally ill until recently. And so if you're deemed to be mentally ill, then you probably shouldn't have a firearm. And you look at all these recent mass shootings that transgenders have committed. And to me, it says, well, maybe they should be considered mentally ill and not be given access to firearms. I mean, that would be an adjustment that you could, call for, given the, Catholic school that just got shot up. We've had numerous transgender shootings. So I'm not for, more gun restrictions. However, I don't think people that are mentally ill should possess firearms. So if you want to go down that angle, then I could see that. But trying to ban speech or trying to go around and police everybody that's saying something negative about Charlie Kirk, I think that's a losing battle. And I think that leads to making, criticism of Israel illegal, anti-Semitism illegal. You just open the door to, losing other rights. And then who's to decide what hate speech is? Who's to decide what is incitement of violence? I mean, if that's left up to our government, I mean, we have like fucking 250 congressmen in Israel right now. I don't trust them to make any laws that are going to, protect free speech. So to me, I think it's a very slippery slope. And look, I got a lot of respect for Nick, and I think he's an incredible speaker, and I like his message for the most part. We do disagree on this one. I don't think there's a need for increased censorship. I don't think that we should be doxing people, no matter what they say about Charlie Kirk. People are entitled to react however they want to react. And if they disagreed with his message, then okay, fine. I think, encouraging violence obviously is wrong, but to celebrate somebody's death, that's not illegal. If Bibi Netanyahu got killed tomorrow, I'd be doing fucking cartwheels and jumping jacks in my fucking house. I get a fucking cake to celebrate, right? So, but that's my right, as a U.S. citizen. So I don't think that you want to open the door of attacking people. And I promise you, Nick, if he's on the right side of this, he'd obviously celebrate Netanyahu's death as well. So, who's to tell you, who you have to mourn and celebrate for? I think, like I said, that's a very slippery slope, and I don't think we should go down it.
So people that are criticizing the incitement of violence, which I think we've seen a lot of on the left. We've seen that exposed over the past couple days, uncovering videos and clips from the past several years. A lot of these leftist streamers have indirectly or pretty much directly called for the violence of conservative commentators. Destiny yesterday said that he wants conservatives to be in fear when they go to public events and be in fear of danger. And we've seen other people like Hassan Piker have said, pretty much inciting violence on sitting senators. Is this stuff that can be classified under free speech?
I mean, I think already inciting violence is technically not covered under free speech. I could be wrong, but I think that's already, if you're encouraging somebody to hurt somebody else or kill somebody, I don't know that the First Amendment protects that. But to me, I'm for all freedoms. Look, if the left wants to go to war with the right, that's not going to end well for them. And I'm not worried about some fucking blue-haired retard showing up at my house with a fucking gun. Bring it on. Whatever, man. So at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of talk. I think the left is full of a bunch of fucking pussies, and I'm not really worried about that. But I think the bigger problem is this whole left versus right. Like, are the left, mostly retarded? Yeah, they have a bunch of really shitty takes. But where did they get those takes? That came from the Jewish media. That's who's pushing this on them. That's who's giving them their talking points. So for me, I always like to go to the root cause of the problem instead of focusing on like, hey, I broke my leg, I need painkillers. It's like, hey, I broke my leg, let me fix my broken leg. And so I think you have to look at where this left craziness is coming from, because it wasn't here, 6-7 years ago. This is a more recent phenomenon where the left is just like so extremely radicalized, and they're pushing for things that go against common sense. It goes against common sense that women should be boxing against men. It goes against common sense that there should be tampons in men's bathrooms. It goes against common sense that, pedophiles shouldn't be prosecuted and that we should refer to them as minor attracted males. All this stuff is insanity. But it's not insanity that they just all woke up one day and started thinking. They're a bunch of fucking sheep. People, for the most part, lack critical thinking skills. They do what they are told to do, and our society is basically designed them to be a bunch of fucking sheep. So, when the sheep are herded and they go, run in this direction, you don't get mad at the sheep. You get mad at the sheep herder for sending them in that direction. And so I'm looking at the one that's giving them the talking points, as opposed to trying to like scream at the fucking sheep that are just doing what they're told.
So you think that the left-right division, you seem to be like not afraid of, obviously I think most people on the right are not afraid of the left. Do you think that if this was orchestrated, that part of it was to ensue chaos, was to distract and create a civil war to keep us more divided while they enact the 50 states, one Israel, while they have 250 U.S. politicians taking a picture in Israel right now, while they give $650 million to Israel military aid, and Marco Rubio signs legislation to ban you from the U.S. if you criticize Israel? Is this a big distraction? Is this civil war incitement?
I mean, of course, that's insanity, right? And so if you're a small group and you have a disproportionate amount of power, you're going to want the large group as divided as humanly possible, especially if you are, funding a genocide, if you are, blackmailed, if you're committing treason, if you're doing all the things that these people are doing right now, you're going to want people as distracted and divided as humanly possible. And that's what we have right now. We have massive division. And, is a civil war, the best case scenario? Maybe, but it's not, the civil war of the left against the right. That's just, two groups of sheep attacking each other because, their masters sent them in to attack each other. What we need to do is remove this, Jewish supremacy from our country. We need to remove Israel's control of America. That is the crux of the issue. And that's what they're trying to distract from. And it's glaringly fucking obvious, and people are opening their eyes to it. I mean, you can't ignore it anymore. The fact that all of our congressmen are over there, they're fucking kissing the wall. They have to hide their crosses. They're wearing those stupid little fucking hats. It's literally been ruled a genocide by, the International Committee for Genocide or whatever, like the scholars, they all ruled that it was a genocide. I mean, every single person in the world is figuring out what's going on. And we are just being dragged along as a fucking puppet for this genocidal country that just wants to steal more land, which, by the way, is like completely fucking illegal. Like, you can't steal land anymore, like we have the UN, like there's the Geneva Conventions. Like we put things in place to where, countries just cannot steal land anymore. And that's literally what they're doing on the West Bank. That's what they're doing today in Gaza. They just invaded Gaza. And, they're trying to do this under the guise of like, oh, we need to get our hostages back. It's like, fuck, you motherfuckers have 9,000 hostages right now. You know what I mean? You're trying to make this about you getting like 40 back. It's just all bullshit. And Charlie talked about that. He talked about that with PBD. They let October 7th happen. They have the fucking best surveillance in the fucking world. Like they knew what was going on. Like they took 6 hours to respond, and when they did respond, they responded by killing their own fucking citizens. Because what did they want? They wanted a massive tragedy so that they could justify stealing land and ethnically cleansing the fucking Palestinians. And that's exactly what they're doing, and it's like, it's glaringly obvious to anybody that's paying attention. And this whole like script of, but October 7th and October 7th and beheaded babies and all this bullshit they fed us. It's just, that was fucking 2 years ago. Like, what are you talking about? Like, and it was a small attack. It's like, if you take out the actual like, IDF soldiers and you focus on just civilians, it was like 300 and something civilians that were killed. And probably the majority of that was killed by the fucking IDF themselves when they're shooting fucking Hellfire missiles from Apache helicopters at vehicles, and they're shelling kibbutzes with the tanks. So, like, this is not a big deal. They killed more than 500 Palestinian civilians that year already. So if anything, this was a reaction to what they had done. So, this whole thing of like October 7th justifies this genocide. It's just absolute fucking propaganda and nonsense. I mean, even Piers Morgan has flip-flopped on it.
Yeah, he completely changed his mind. He's now saying it's ethnic cleansing. He's calling it I don't know what made him shift.
Losing his base. He's losing his fucking base. Everybody knows that he's full of shit, and he realizes, like, he could have all the fucking donors in the world, but if his audience turns on him and they all fucking hate him, like, nobody's going to listen to him. And so that's why he's doing it. He's not doing it because it's like some, like, moral fucking, like, obligation. Like, he's had this information for a fucking year and a half. Like, he knows what's going on. He's just doing that because it's become so unpopular. And I think that's why Charlie was coming around as well, is because it's becoming like just indefensible at this point. There's no defense of their actions. And so, yeah, I think everybody's going to eventually turn. And it's just now, you see Alex Jones, he's trying to like craft his pivot or whatever. And, I don't think it's genuine. I think it's because they know that if they don't, they're going to lose their base.
That brings up a valid shift. Like Tucker Carlson was pushing for the Iraq war for 3 decades, and now he's saying that 9/11 was Israel on Piers Morgan. So all these talking heads that were so pro-Zionist and pro-Jewish for so long, now that they see that they can't have any sort of viewers without pushing back a little bit, they shift. I don't find it genuine at all either. But did you see this morning, the whole Daily Wire team went on the Charlie Kirk show? Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, who I was supposed to debate on Piers, but Michael Knowles backed down. They were all there, and I've seen Ben Shapiro was supposed to be the one to take over the Charlie Kirk show. Yesterday, Tucker Carlson and J.D. Vance were on the Charlie Kirk show. What do you make of this? Is this a narrative play, or do they really have a lot of empathy about his death?
No, I think it's, just controlling more media. And that's always been their objective. I mean, I was told they offered Charlie Kirk $150 million. So, their goal is to try and sway public opinion, and they're panicking. Israel is fucking panicking right now because they are losing everybody. And to have Netanyahu go on the fucking Nelk boys, like, that is a fucking Hail Mary. That is like, we got to do whatever we possibly can do, and that's totally backfired on him. And I'm glad to see it. Bassem knocked it out of the fucking park. And the rebuttal is that was more valuable to me than, whatever Netanyahu's propaganda speech was prior to that. So I think it was like actually a net negative for Israel. And I think that's what they're finding, is all these shows, unless they have somebody that's like completely controlled, is going to be a net negative for them. They've totally lost control of the narrative, and they're not getting it back.
That's why I think your message is important, because, you're right. Like, we need to, this is the only way we could take our country back. We're very clearly under occupation, and our tax dollars are being spent on genociding people under the justification of the hostages. Everyone's sick of it. But how do we get to the point? What comes next? Because everyone's waking up, and Israel's realizing the only support base they have are Americans. Nobody else in the world likes Israel. There's not one country that is supportive and is giving them this amount of military aid and that is keeping their narrative alive. They tried last second with Nelk Boys. They even tried with PBD. That one was confusing. I thought PBD had some sort of backbone, but that made me lose respect. But if they lose the American support base completely, which is very likely to happen, can we get to a point where they don't because they say Israel has the right to exist. they cannot exist if they don't have our money and our support.
Yeah, I don't think they have a right to exist. It's stolen land, and I think they're fucking. I know they're terrorists. And you look at the history of Israel's foundation, they bombed the fucking King David Hotel, done all these false flag attacks. They're living in apartheid right now. They're conducting a genocide. They're stealing land. I mean, they're doing everything that would qualify you as a terrorist. So I don't know why anybody's referring to them as anything other than a terrorist state. And, terrorists need to be eliminated. I mean, that's what they taught us about Muslims, right? It's like we have to eliminate all Muslim terrorists. Well, Muslims aren't in control of our fucking country right now. Like, our problems are not because of fucking Muslims. They want to paint it like that, and maybe in the UK they're having some issues because they let a bunch of fucking, poor Muslims in that had no fucking business in their country. And they're basically giving them free reign and not prosecuting them for rape and whatever. And so, humans, when they, have no resources and when they're in a country that they have no allegiance to, and, and they're with people that they don't give a shit about, they're going to act like animals. I don't care what their religion is. And so, in America, we don't have a fucking Muslim problem. We have a Jewish supremacy problem. And I think people need to wake the fuck up to that. And I think they are finally, but people need to stop being distracted from that. Like, Muslims are not the reason why America is having fucking problems. Iran is not a fucking threat to us. Like, all this money that's going over there, it's just like, it's literally just stealing from us. And not only are they stealing from us by giving our money away to these fucking parasites, but they're also sucking the value out of the dollar by the day by just printing more and more. Like, how the fuck is there a private bank that could just print US dollars and then decide what interest rate they want to charge our fucking government? What a scam that is. Like, that's not like grabbing your wallet out of your fucking pocket. That's devaluing everything that you fucking own in the world. That's devaluing your house, your fucking stocks, everything. That's stealing from you on a whole different level, which is what these Jews are doing. And, and like I said, just people are distracted. And so what a perfect distraction is, the fucking blacks are killing us and, liberals are fucking killing us. It's like, 2 people died, yes, it was fucking horrific, both of them, especially the train. The train was fucking absolutely atrocious. But that's what happens when you tell a group of people that the reason that they're not fucking succeeding is because they're oppressed and because white people put them in slavery, when it was mostly fucking Jews that put them in slavery. But the whole narrative that's been fed to them is white people are oppressing you. There's, systemic racism, white people are the problem. So, are you surprised when they lash out and they attack white people and you also relax the policing and, and you let them out of jail 15 fucking times when they commit egregious crimes and you put them back on the streets? Are you surprised that he's fucking stabbing a white girl and then celebrating and saying, I got that white girl? Like, people are looking at the action and they're not looking at what causes this fucking action. And what causes this action is that guy being upset at white people because he truly thinks that white people are the reason why he's not succeeding and that he's being oppressed in this fucking country, which is just total fucking bullshit. And so, you've got this, blacks mad at whites and then whites rightfully mad at blacks and this whole division. And it's like, people need to fucking, get together and figure out what the actual problem is. And Muslims and Christians need to fucking unite, right and the left. I mean, this whole blind, unabashed support of Israel is something that everybody can recognize as a fucking problem. And until we solve that, until we solve the fact that our government is compromised, like, the rest of this stuff is irrelevant. Like, it really is. Like, you think if we just remove, all the blacks from our country, it's going to solve all of our fucking problems, or remove everybody on the fucking left from our country, it's going to solve all of our problems? It's not, But if you remove this fucking Jewish supremacy circle, that will solve a lot of fucking problems. It certainly did in fucking Germany. If you look at the Weimar Republic versus what happened after that, they went from, literally carting around enough money in a fucking wheelbarrow to buy a loaf of bread to becoming a world superpower. And it wasn't an accident. So, I look at all this stuff as just a total fucking distraction.
I think what makes your message unique compared to others, because if you saw that the Emmys or whatever award show it was, Javier Bardem and all these celebrities are starting to say Free Palestine and wear the keffiyeh and say this and call out Israel, but then they'll also throw in a sentence like, fuck ICE and Free Palestine. And the leftists have now almost unanimously opposed Israel, but they talk about it as if it's white supremacy. They're not able to differentiate the two. They don't call out the fact that Israel does not exist without Judaism, that this is a religious issue. They like to think it's just apartheid and it's just this nation, this country, it's just Zionism. But why does Zionism exist? Why do you think the leftists that are free Palestine, I don't know if they support you or not, if they push back, what do they think about what you say? Because you'll go out specifically and say it's Jewish supremacy.
Well, I mean, they need to recognize the fucking problem. And I think they've been indoctrinated to believe that Jews are victims, and they're not victims. Jews have been historically the aggressors that try and paint themselves as victims. And, they're starting to see that with Israel. I mean, look, Sean King and I were probably on two polar opposite sides of the fucking spectrum, but this is something that we can agree on. This is something that people with any kind of critical thinking and common sense can recognize that what's going on there is a problem. And it doesn't mesh with the narrative. Like, it's an ethnocentric apartheid state. Like, how the fuck could anybody on the left be okay with that? That goes against everything that they believe. And it's not white supremacy, it's Jewish supremacy. Like, this isn't a bunch of fucking Nazis in Israel. This isn't, white supremacists. This is Jewish supremacists. These are people that are keeping Israel Jewish. These are people that believe that Jews are better than everybody else. Like, the amount of whites that are running around saying, whites are, the chosen people and blah, blah, blah. It's super limited. I've almost never run into them. Granted, we're creating more of them with this fucking division and this, message and, the media refusing to, cover any black on white violence and, and this constant like oppression of being white. Honestly, like, that's what whites are feeling right now, is just massive oppression. They're feeling shame for being white. It's all this stuff. And, the pendulum swings far in one direction. It's going to fucking swing far back in the other direction. And, that's what they're going to get. But Israel is not, I mean, look, Jews don't consider themselves white unless it's convenient for them. They put themselves in the white category when it comes to like college admissions. Because if we realize that, Jews are 25% of the fucking Ivy League admissions, there would be a fucking problem. So they put themselves in the white category when it's convenient. But the moment people start criticizing whites, they're like, oh, well, but I'm Jewish, and it's like automatically they, get this victim pass. And it's just fucking bullshit. So I think people need to wake up to that.
I want to ask you more about the ramifications of Charlie Kirk. But first, I think one of the major catalysts that a lot of people are waking up to is the truth about 9/11, right? That just passed, and it was overshadowed pretty much by Charlie Kirk. What do you think really happened on 9/11, and will we ever realize?
I think 9/11 was unequivocally controlled demolition. So they, one of Charlie Kirk's arguments was like, oh, well, who flew the planes? Who did that? Like, why did, it's like, planes, crashed into the towers, but that's not what brought the towers down. Building 7 wasn't touched. Building 7 fell, and it fell hours afterwards. And by the way, the BBC announced it 30 minutes before it fell. They announced that it had already fallen. So, and that's a little strange. On live television, they announced that Building 7 fell. Building 7 wasn't even fucking hit, and then 30 minutes later it falls. So it's clearly controlled demolitions. Buildings don't just fall down randomly, and they don't fall down perfectly on top of themselves. Like, a controlled demolition takes a while, and you have to plant the explosives in there, and it's a whole thing. Well, there was Israeli art students that were having access to the World Trade Center for like over a month prior to it going down, and it was called, and they lit up on the side of the fucking building, E-Team, and that was right where the fucking plane hit. They have photos of it. So it's and all the firemen too, they all testified. They said they heard explosions, multiple explosions, all this stuff. Like, we have the recordings. I mean, so it's a lot of this got swept under the rug, but it's so fucking glaringly obvious what happened. I mean, there was obviously, like, who benefited from, the Twin Towers going down? Israel, because we went and fought their fucking wars. And, Netanyahu came and, he lobbied for us to fight those wars. Twin Towers fell, and that was the catalyst. That was what allowed them to pass the Patriot Act, and that allowed us to, go murder a million Iraqi civilians and, go fucking topple their regime, which was supposedly going to have positive reverberations throughout the region, according to Netanyahu, and that was a complete fucking lie, just like everything else that he's told us. And so, I think it's glaringly obvious what happened. I mean, You've got, like what was it, like 70 Mossad agents that were over there that they caught, that they apprehended. I mean, they had the five where they had video of them celebrating and filming it before it was happening. Literally, while the plane was like flying into the Trade Center, they got a picture of the guy holding up a fucking lighter, taking photos, smiling, and then they're like Mossad agents. They find explosive residue in the van, and they release these guys. And the guy that released them was Jewish, right? Like, I mean, it's just fucking absurd. So there's a staggering amount of evidence. I mean, there was, a bunch of Jews that didn't show up for work that day. Larry Silverstein, the guy that double insured the buildings, that was the only day that he's ever missed of work. Like, I mean, it's just like at some point you got to be like, this is ridiculous. Clearly, there was something going on here, and I think everybody's figured that out now. I mean, the controlled demolition piece. I mean, they showed, steel doesn't fucking melt from jet fuel. And even if it did, like, even if a couple of these things fell down, like, it wouldn't cause the entire fucking structure to fall down. Like, the base of that structure was not compromised. The base of that structure had no jet fuel in it. They could make the argument if the plane hit the bottom of the fucking building, right? Like, with explosives, then maybe. But like, if it hits the top of the building, that doesn't make the bottom of the building fall. That's not how that works. The bottom of the building is made to support the weight of the entire fucking building. So yeah, we got sold a bill of goods for sure.
I saw recently there was a Trump post in the newspaper right after 9/11. He said, well, at least I have the biggest tower in downtown Manhattan now. The Trump building on Wall Street is the tallest. It reminded me a lot of his response to Charlie Kirk. As soon as they asked him about his death, he's saying, yeah, that's really sad, but I'm building couches in the White House. It's like, I'm feeling good, and we're making the ballroom, and we're expanding. And then I sent you this post last night because I knew that it would make you equally laugh, but also kind of piss you off. Was the picture of Charlie Kirk and Trump's cheek to cheek with the United States flag and the Israeli flag. He posted on True Social right after his death. Is Trump completely, so is he capable of steering this country in the right direction?
No, he's a complete piece of shit. He's a total sellout. And I told everybody that before. In fact, I was, hoping that Kamala Harris got elected. And I told you that before Trump got elected,
Yeah,
not
did.
because I think she would do anything great at all, but I just didn't think people would follow her. And I thought that, we possibly might get a fucking revolution that we need. And I thought people would blindly follow him a lot more than they actually have. Thankfully, people have figured out his bullshit a lot quicker than I expected. People have woken up so fucking fast to this. I actually think we can win now. So, but no, he's a total sellout. He's a total piece of shit. He's a total fraud. He only cares about himself. He's completely fucking compromised. And then that's evident and everybody knows it. I mean, his covering up the Epstein file should tell you everything you need to know. Forget about Israel. Just the Epstein thing alone is fucking egregious. And then him acting like, oh, like, who cares about this Epstein thing? It's like, motherfucker, this is the biggest pedophile ring in fucking US history, you fucking moron. Like, you ran on the premise of you're going to release this. Like, it's just like, he must think that people are so fucking stupid. And I get it. The average person is pretty fucking dumb. But like, his arrogance is shocking. Like, the shit, like how much he thinks he can get away with without people figuring it out is really shocking. And it's telling of, how much of a fucking narcissist he is. But he absolutely does not have the country's best interest in mind. MAGA is a complete fucking hoax. This is make Israel great again. Fucking, it has nothing to do with America. And, he's been a complete fucking disaster.
When you met him back in 2015, were you hopeful? What was your impression back then compared to now?
Well, I mean, what I knew back then is, I mean, I had such a completely different outlook. I mean, I was, um, fucking completely consumed by hedonism, and I was, I wasn't interested in politics at all. I had no idea what the fuck was going on. It was just like, oh, here's a guy that might become president, and he seems like he's kind of a guy's guy, and he shoots from the hip, and I think that's cool. And it was just like, it was so surface level. um and I think at the time everybody's kind of sick and tired of the politicians, and we thought, hey, here's a guy that's supposedly got a lot of money, and maybe he's doing it for the right reasons. Well, that was obviously a complete fucking lie. But yeah, I remember asking him. I think this was in 2022 or 2020. I think it was 2022. I remember asking him, I said, what the fuck is going on in our country? Well, I was sitting there, and I was talking to him, and I'm like, it feels like we got infiltrated by China or Russia or like something's happened because our country is being destroyed and it feels like it's being destroyed from within. I said we've never been more divided. I said it's never been more radical. Right hates the left, left hates the right. We've never been more racist. I feel like all these policies that are coming, like everything that's coming out of the media, like it's just all meant to make us weaker and divided and hurt the moral fiber of our country. This pushing transgenderism, it's just like it just none of it makes any sense. Like what's going on? I had no idea. I had no fucking idea. And I looked at him and he gave me like a deer in the headlights look, and he just had no answer. He didn't even have a suggestion. It was just like he just had nothing. And I remember leaving there thinking, like, how the fuck could you become the president and be in office for 4 years and be into politics and not have any kind of an answer to that question? Like, how could you not know? And now I realize it's obviously, because of this fucking Jewish supremacy that, he's in on and, won't say a fucking word about. But at the time, I just remember being so confused. And now obviously it makes sense. So
what's the likelihood that Trump himself is compromised on the Epstein Island, that he's blackmailed?
I mean, he's in the files. That's come out. I don't think that anybody debates that. But whether he's compromised because of that or because, they've got, because they bailed him out or he was in debt or they could send him to prison or they have, a tape of him fucking, a little boy or because, a lot of the donors he's protecting. I don't know what the reason is, but he's unequivocally compromised. It's not, it's not a maybe, it's 100%.
And who do you think could be a future president of this country that could possibly steer it? Is there anyone? Is there anything that you're hopeful for?
The only person that I would have confidence in is, Thomas Massey. I mean, obviously myself, but Thomas Massey, I think, is the only politician in office that I, truly have faith in and truly believe in.
So you want to run for office?
I don't want to. Like I've never been interested in politics. Like I don't want to do any of this stuff, but I feel like it's going to require somebody that is uncorruptible and somebody that doesn't care about fame or money or, hedonism or any of that stuff. And I think there's a very short list of people that are truly immune to that. And I feel like Thomas Massey is probably on that list. I don't know how much temptation he's had in his life. But he certainly seems like he's walking the right path. When somebody gets, waved, $1 billion in front of them, sometimes their, allegiances fall or, their morals, cave or whatever. So you never really know until somebody's truly tested. But so far, I mean, the guy's walked the walk. So I would definitely vote for him. I mean, right now, I mean, unless something drastically changed.
I mean, you've walked the walk. We've seen that what you've had to go through since you started speaking up about Israel. We've seen what you've lost. We've seen that you don't have other motivations or you're not owned by other people. It's very clear that you care about our country, and you don't. What could they bribe you with at this point? I never thought about it like that, but
I've just done everything. Like I've done everything I ever wanted to do. Like I've fucked all the girls. I had all the cars. I had all the parties. I'm famous. Like, there's nothing else on the hedonism side. Like I've done everything. I scratched every itch, and I realized that it's just not the answer. It's fun. Don't get me wrong. Like you will have fun fucking hot girls and racing Ferraris and doing shit like that for a limited period of time. But I just don't care about it anymore. It's kind of like a kid that's had, a life supply of Snickers bars. Like eventually you're going to not give a shit about Snickers bars. But if you're starving in prison, you'd probably kill somebody for a fucking Snickers bar. So I think, like I said, the list is short of people that are uncorruptible. And you just have to be at a place in your life where you're just like, fuck it, I'm going to do the right thing no matter what. And, shit happens. But, we'll go down with the ship. We have to. And I think Charlie Kirk might have been getting there. But look, at the end of the day, I truly believe that he knew what Israel was doing was wrong. And I think that he would argue with retards and he would beat them. And, it's pretty easy to beat somebody that's 21 years old and you've got, tons more knowledge and experience and you could talk about things that they don't know about and then make them look stupid and win arguments. But he didn't want to debate anybody that was well versed on Israel because he knew he was going to fucking lose. And so I think based on that, eventually you have to come around to like you're just on the wrong side of it because he's clearly, he was an intelligent guy. I mean, he's a great debater. I mean, this is what he did for a living. So when you come to a topic where you can't defensively debate it, I mean, logic would then tell you like you might be on the wrong side. And he just had way too much information to not know. And so I think when you do the right thing and your intentions are pure, I think that you get a level of protection. And I think when you know the truth and you steer people in the wrong direction, then, I think you're dancing with the devil. And when you do that, he can fucking take you whenever he wants. So not saying that, Charlie went to hell or whatever. I'm just saying that I don't believe that he had the protection that he would have had if he would have come out and explicitly been against Israel. I think if he would have done that, I don't think they could have killed him. And I think if they did kill him, they would have made such an incredible martyr out of him on the other side that it would have been, and because look at what they've done. They've tried to use him as like, oh, he was on our side and, they must have killed him. It was kind of like the whole, Trump scam when they, pretended like they shot his ear or whatever. And he came up and he says, fight, and they got all the fucking camera guys there. And they're like, look, like, the bad guys are the ones trying to assassinate people. So if they're trying to assassinate him, he's got to be on the right side, and they use that as like one of the things that he ran on was basically like, they're trying to kill him because, he's going to be against the deep state and he's going to do the right thing. And, they don't want him in office, but it was all fucking show. It was all WWE bullshit. And if you look at how bad they scripted it, like who the fuck gets shot and comes up and says, fight, it's like the cheesiest, gayest fucking thing I would ever come up with. Like, look, if he had a gun, there was somebody who shot at him, he came up with a fucking gun, and he shot back, that's a whole different fucking animal. But coming up and yelling fight when there's an active shooter and you don't have a gun, like, what the fuck are you, fight who, dumbass? Like, what do you want the crowd to go run after this fucking guy unarmed? Like, it's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And the Secret Service allowed him to do it, and he came up with blood on the ear, but he's got no fucking scar, and then the perfect picture with the fucking flag in the background. Like, come on, dude. Like, now looking back, like, it was such theatrics, and it didn't feel authentic either at the time, and I think Elon fell for it. And I think he kind of like realized that he got fucking scammed. And he called out Trump harder than anybody else has ever fucking called out Trump. Trump had no rebuttal. And I think Elon's been since, probably walking it back. But, you don't accuse the president of the United States of something like that unless you fucking know. Like Elon's like the richest guy in the entire world. He's got a lot of shit to lose, like he's not going to make that statement unless he has evidence and he knows it's true. That's just, you just don't accuse the president of the United States of rape or something crazy like that unless you unequivocally know that it's true. And for the president to not say a single word about it, to dispute it, he disputed every other thing that Elon said. He had a full fucking dissertation explanation. It was like two fucking high school kids going back and forth, but he didn't say a word about that. And what happened immediately afterwards? He fucking bombed Iran, and all of a sudden everybody's like focused on Iran, and they forgot about the fact that, he was involved in the biggest fucking pedophile cover-up in U.S. history. So, anyways.
You make a good point. Like if Charlie was all completely anti-Israel, then he would have been martyred for our side. But the fact that he was,
I don't think he would have been killed.
Do you think because he was slowly coming around? One of the major events that people,
I don't think it was slow. I mean, he had that meeting with Bill Ackman, and and Bill tried to rein him in. And then immediately the next day, I don't know if you watched the podcast that he did. I think it was with Megyn Kelly. I mean, that meeting did not go well with Bill, and so I don't know if it was slow. I mean, look, that was probably the come to Jesus moment for them. And they realized that he wasn't going to come to, their side, right? He was going to Jesus and he wasn't going to Satan. So I think they had to do something quickly. Look, I mean, maybe they didn't kill him. I don't know, but they certainly have a motive, and they've certainly got a history of doing this. I mean, they brag about how good they are at assassinations. So if you were on their side and you knew somebody as influential as Charlie Kirk was going to turn on you, which would be catastrophic for their movement, would you just let them do it? I mean, you've killed hundreds of thousands of children. Are you going to stop at one fucking random American?
He opposed that war in Iran. He was very vocal about that. Trump's biggest supporter. He said that this war in Iran was should not have happened. Look,
Of course it shouldn't have happened. They were literally willing to say that they would never have nukes. They killed the fucking chief negotiators. Like, they've never been a nuclear threat. They've always allowed for nuclear inspection, unlike Israel. So they don't have intercontinental ballistic missiles. Like, they were never a fucking threat to us. It's just all bullshit and theatrics. Like, they can't even take out fucking Israel. You're going to tell me we're worried about them taking out us? Like, come the fuck on. They've got a country that is mass murdering fucking Muslims in their fucking backyard, that's sending rockets into their fucking country, and they can't take them out, and we're worried that they're going to be a threat to us? Like, fuck you, dude. Like, that's just such nonsense.
And anyone doubting and saying, because I said the day of that I think it was Mossad, just look at me, what happened last week. They bombed Qatar, they bombed Doha, they bombed a U.S. ally, they got away with it.
And nobody's talking about it, by the way. Nobody's talking about that. They got the fucking blame shifted right off. The whole fucking conversation just went to Charlie.
Killed Yemen leadership, Hamas leadership, Iranian leadership. They've killed how many different foreign leaders? If it's going to be one, debater on a college campus, this is extremely valuable to them. I think you spelled it out really well here.
Forget about the leaders. They had motive to kill them. How about the fucking soup kitchen workers? How about the hundreds of fucking journalists they've killed? How about the fucking all the children that they've sniped? How about the starving people that they murdered at the fucking aid stations? How about the ambulance workers they fucking gunned down? How about Hind Rajab? I mean, you want me to keep fucking going? It's like these are people that they had no fucking motive to kill. They're fucking ambulance workers, for God's sake. Soup kitchen workers. They're murdering them. You're going to tell me they're not going to kill somebody that could be fucking detrimental to their regime? Like, yeah, right.
If they're going to kill, how many journalists have they killed? How many?
I'm saying they're killing people for fucking fun. They're killing people for no reason. You're going to tell me they're not going to kill somebody when they have a reason? Like, fuck off. This is like such common sense shit, man. Like, people just get so distracted that they just can't fucking, they just can't separate the fucking woods from the trees. And it's just like, I don't know, man. I look at this and it's so fucking clear what's going on. But I think people are waking up, I think people are fucking waking up, and I think it's only a matter of time. I mean, I don't think Israel can continue. But I will tell you what could fuck us is if Palantir got a massive amount of power and they started limiting your ability to criticize Israel, your ability to criticize Jewish supremacy, like that sort of thing. Like, I think that's their last opportunity to potentially win. And so I'm going to be really skeptical of anybody that tries to help usher that in. I can promise you that, because anybody that is helping to bring in free speech, Palantir, doxing of civilians, for how they feel about somebody that was fucking killed, that's a problem.
What about is the 50 states one Israel project a problem?
I mean, the fact that Israel exists is a fucking problem. You want to ask me? So yes, that is a fucking problem. The fact that all of our politicians are, waving fucking Israeli flags in their office. The fact that the picture that the president chose to honor Charlie had a fucking Israeli flag in the background. Yes, that's a fucking problem. The fact that 250 of our fucking congressmen are in Israel is fucking treason. Yes, it's a fucking problem. It's a huge problem. And, and we need to wake the fuck up and do something about it come this next election cycle.
So where do the Jews go? I mean, if they've been expelled from 109 countries, now they have their own state, which was allowed since 1948. They look at what this state has done since they were established. What happens now if Israel doesn't have the right to exist?
Well, I mean, it's, so there's the Israel problem, and then there's the U.S. problem. And, and some of them are interlaced, but, it's not just Israel for me. That's why when people are oh, say Zionist, I'm like, no, fuck you. Say fucking Jew. Because the Jews have been a problem since before Israel's inception. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the fucking Bolshevik genocide, the Holodomor, those were all before Israel's inception, right? Clipping of fucking coins, poisoning of fucking wells, crucifying children. That shit happened prior to Israel's inception. So don't act like it's only the fucking Zionists. That's just bullshit. They killed tens of millions of Christians. They burned down 40,000 plus Christian churches in what was an 80 something percent Russian Orthodox, Christian fucking country, and this was Jewish leadership, and it was Jewish leadership as per Putin, as per Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Hitler said that. Churchill said that. So these are people that, you want to eliminate Hitler. You say it's not a valuable source. Okay, well, Churchill, you can take his fucking word for it. He said the Bolshevik leadership was predominantly Jewish. In fact, he wrote a whole fucking paper on it, Zionism versus Bolshevism, the struggle for the fucking Jewish soul. And he clearly lines out that it was Jewish leadership running the Bolshevik, which was anti-Christian, which was anti-religion, and the first thing they did is make it illegal to criticize Jews. So acting like this has only become a fucking problem with the creation of Israel is just ignoring history.
I mean, even you made me realize, like, when it comes to the Christians and Muslims coming together, Christians believe Jews killed Jesus, and Muslims believe Jews killed Muhammad. But for some reason, Judeo-Christian values are what America is united upon.
Yeah, it's a total hoax, total fucking scam. And you look at when Judeo-Christian values, when that started to be mentioned, I believe it started in the 70s. This was not something like our country was founded upon. This came with that whole Holocaust propaganda thing, because you look in the Encyclopedia Britannica, there wasn't even a Holocaust in the Encyclopedia Britannica until like the late 70s. And around the 80s is when they figured out like all the fucking numbers were bullshit. That's when Auschwitz revised their number. That's when the other death camps fucking work camps, whatever, revised their numbers. And all of a sudden you saw 4 million Jews sucked out of this 6 million figure, and there was no explanation as to like where they went. There was, you told us that 4 million Jews died in Auschwitz for 40 or 50 fucking years, and now all of a sudden you snap your fingers and they're fucking gone. Oh, well, they were probably shot somewhere else. This isn't fucking 3,000. This is 3 million. You don't just misplace 3 million fucking bodies, like where are they buried? You didn't cremate them. That's mathematically impossible. So like, I don't know, man. We've absolutely unequivocally been lied to. So I think once you recognize that and you start looking through the lens of that, things are going to be a lot more clear. It's just tough, man, because fighting 40 years of propaganda, you just have to unlearn a lot of things. And it's kind of like when you're told that Santa Claus isn't real, you don't want to believe it.
I don't know how seriously you're considering, running for public office, but we're all behind you here. The chat got extremely excited when you mentioned that. So if that's something down the line, obviously it's very early to tell, but I think
I think it's something I have to do. It's not something I want to do. I think it'll be a fucking total disaster. I think they'll probably fucking, and end up, smoking me or, putting me in jail, doing something fucked up. But I think it's worth it. Look, if everybody's fucking scared and nobody's going to fucking do anything, which was kind of the deal when I first started speaking out about this almost 2 years ago, is like, a lot of people knew it, but nobody wanted to fucking say it. And when you're in a situation like that, indifference to public affairs, leads you to be ruled by evil men, and so it's one of those things where if nobody's willing to step up, then nothing's going to get done. You're going to continue to be ruled. And, and it sucks being the first people, because usually the first people are in the fucking meat grinder, but once everybody starts saying it, they can't fucking kill everybody. They can't silence everybody. And I think that's where we're at now, is now we're at a critical mass stage where they can't fucking punish everybody for speaking out. They can't go after everybody. There's too many of us. Now the only thing they can do is start censoring us. So you better be fucking careful with this Palantir thing, with regulating free speech, advocating for that, because that is the only way that, they can really start fucking us up. Because then when they start throwing people in jail, that becomes a pretty big deterrent. They can't kill everybody, but they can start throwing people in jail. And then, it's like, I don't know, man, we're not the same generation we were fucking, 20, 30 years ago. These fucking kids are raised, fucking playing Xbox and watching TV and doing TikTok fucking dance videos. So the idea of like a violent overthrow of the government, I don't know if that's really in the fucking cards. And so just be wary of us losing free speech, because I think the first thing that needs to happen for anything to change is that everybody needs to realize what the fucking problem is. If everybody knew tomorrow we had elections, this would be fucking done for. Assuming they didn't rig the elections. If they rigged the elections, then, then we might be in fucking real trouble. But if everybody knows what's going on and they can vote, well, should equal change.
I just got to correct something. So a Jew didn't kill Muhammad. It was just tried to. It was poisoned, but it didn't affect him. But I want to ask you maybe one or two more. I don't want to hold you too much. Have you seen any of Peter Thiel's lectures? That
Oh my God. Yeah, that guy looks like such a fucking sociopath. Him and who was the open AI guy? What's it? Fuck.
Sam Altman.
Yes. Yeah, that piece of shit. Tucker Carlson just fucking grilled him. I don't know if you watched that episode, but just watch the 6 minutes where he grills him on the killing of his employee who basically like blew the whistle and the fucking crazy circumstances of which it happened and how there was like blood in multiple rooms and there was a fucking wig and and then the surveillance cameras were fucking cut and the guy had just ordered takeout food. It's like, who the fuck orders takeout food and then fucking kills themselves and cuts the fucking camera? You know what I mean? Like it leaves no note. Like the whole thing was so fucking absurd after blowing the whistle. Like, and just the way I mean, look, I played poker for 14 fucking years, so I'm pretty good at reading people. That guy's a fucking sociopath scumbag. Yeah, we got to be fucking weary of them. And then who was it? That fucking carp piece of shit that was like laughing about the fucking Palestinian deaths. Like these are the people that are billionaires. These are the people that are in fucking power right now. These are the people that are going to be, controlling the tech that is going to be potentially arresting U.S. citizens. So you better be fucking scared. Like that's not good. If these people are getting away with fucking murder, if these people are okay with that and they're going to be, shaping the fucking AI generation, like that's scary. It's scary that, somebody that doesn't believe in God and, that doesn't have moral principles is going to be the one that's determining what is okay and what's not okay on AI.
I don't like to live in fear. I've come to the point where it's like everything is supposed to happen. Everything happens for a reason. Obviously, when you do look it out and spell it like that, it's like this stuff can be, but it's pretty much all inevitable. You don't seem to be a guy that lives in fear. I mean, ever since Charlie Kirk is, even though we disagreed about so much, you are Charlie Kirk in a sense. You're an outspoken person. You engage in debate and discourse. An attack on him, whether or not we like to admit it, was an attack on free speech and debate and discourse. Have you changed your outlook on the American way of life?
I'm more radical and I'm not scared of anything. So whatever happens. I look, I thought that they were going to fucking kill me like a year and a half, 2 years ago. I told you that. I was just like, and everybody else thought that too. So, I kind of like made peace with that a while ago. I feel like I'm on the fucking bonus round now. Not to mention that I've done everything I ever wanted to fucking do. I remember being like 33 or 35 thinking that if I like died the next day, I was like, you know what? Like I fucking lived like 7 lifetimes. You know what I mean? Like I checked all the boxes. So, whatever, man. I'm not worried about shit. I actually think that I have some level of protection. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But at the end of the day, all you can do is just do what you believe is right, and fucking let the chips fall where they may. If there is no fucking God and there's no higher power, then oh well. At least you fucking. Sometimes you got to gamble, man. That's what life's about. So I'm gambling that it's going to work out. But if it doesn't, I won't have any regrets anyway. So.
No, we see you got your chips on the table, and I think you do have protection. A lot of us are praying for you, and we do appreciate you fighting the good fight, Dan Bilzerian.